These are yours, human. The alien vampire woman returned after many years with twin children in her hands. The twin moons hung low over Tyrus, casting silver crescents across the iron sands, like scythes left by gods who got bored halfway through a harvest. Captain Ryan Vial hated this planet, hated the way its dust clung to boots, lungs, and memories. Hated the smell, somewhere between scorched cinnamon and burnt socks. And most of all, hated the way it stirred old ghosts when the moons were out like this. He stood at the edge of the landing pad, hands deep in his coat pockets, squinting at a flicker of static on the horizon. Something shimmered like a heat mirage, but colder, sharper. Something's breaching, he thought, frowning. The perimeter sensors hadn't shrieked, which either meant they were broken again, highly likely, or whatever was coming knew how to slip past them. That second possibility made his left eye twitch. Ever since the cybernetic implant, it had twitched in the presence of existential dread, or caffeine withdrawal. Behind him, the Scylla's Mercy loomed like a rusting blade in the twilight. The warship wasn't pretty, but it had saved his ass more times than he could count, which, being honest, wasn't that many. He was more of a lead with your gut, worry about physics later kind of guy. The shimmer stabilized. Out stepped a figure. She didn't so much walk as unfurl, stepping into reality like it was a tight dress. Ryan's stomach dropped somewhere into his boots, bounced and rolled off into the sand. A Sarah. Her name hit him like a forgotten song, half hummed under breath and buried beneath years of gunfire and bad whiskey. Same long limbs, same nightshade hair, same skin like dusk. And those ears, graceful, curved upward like two crescent moons of their own. Unmistakably Umbran, and in her arms, two children, small, pale, and very, very quiet, like miniature gods deciding if your planet was worth saving. "These are yours, human," she said. "Not hello, not long time, not even you up. Just that. These are yours." Ryan blinked. Twice. Thought about sitting down. Forgot how. "Mine?" She arched one perfect eyebrow. "I'm not in the habit of collecting other people's spawn, Ryan." The boy, maybe 5 or 6, stared at him like he was a particularly unappetizing fruit. The girl leaned against her mother. No, against Asura, Ryan reminded himself, sucking on what appeared to be the remains of a nutrient brick. "Yours," Asura repeated, voice like velvet dipped in arsenic. "Twins. They inherited your sarcasm and complete inability to shut up." Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Yes," she cut in, sweeping past him with an elegance that made his boots feel 2 sizes too big. "You're going to be a delightful disappointment to them." He followed, dazed, as she boarded the ship like she'd never left, like she hadn't disappeared 6 years ago after a night so stupidly romantic it should have come with a warning label. She'd said it was forbidden, dangerous, that Umbra and humans weren't compatible on a biological, ethical, or literary level. Apparently, none of that applied when you were drunk on moonlight in defying interstellar treaties. Inside the Scylla, the ship's AI flickered on the corridor lights and spoke in its usual passive-aggressive tone. "Oh, joy. Guess. Shall I prepare a restraining field or a fruit platter?" Sarah looked up. "Hello, Gerald. Still annoying?" "I strive for consistency," the AI replied. "Captain, care to explain why our former interspecies war criminal turned one-night-stand just brought 2 children aboard?" "I would," Ryan muttered, "if I had any idea myself." The children followed quietly. The girl glanced at a panel and tilted her head. The ship lights dimmed slightly. Gerald made a noise suspiciously like a cough. "Did she just interface with my systems?" "She's 5, Ryan said. "She's dangerous," Gerald said. "She's adorable," Ryan countered. "Adorably dangerous," Gerald huffed, and promptly locked every weapon locker on the ship. In the medbay, Lieutenant Pex, half Martian, half caffeine, and wearing a suspicious amount of pink glitter, spun around on his chair. "Oh ho, what's this? Surprise family reunion? Should I bake a cake or call child services?" "They're mine," Ryan said. Pex blinked. "Yours? Yours?" "Apparently." "Well, damn." Pex leaned forward, squinting at the kids. You sure? The boy's got your scowl, but the girl's ears are better than yours. Also, she just reprogrammed my heart monitor into a karaoke machine. Sarah sat on the nearest counter and crossed her legs with fluid elegance. They're a little gifted. Ryan rubbed his temples. Gifted how? The girl handed him a drawing, a perfect schematic of the Scylla's internal systems, right down to the malfunctioning lavatory on deck 4. In crayon. Oh, he said faintly. The boy pointed at Pex's thermos. That's not coffee. Pex looked scandalized. It's space coffee, a unique blend of roasted algae and self-hatred. It's leaking. Pex looked down. The bottom of the thermos hissed, then exploded in a puff of violet steam and something that smelled like disappointment. So it is, the ship rumbled. Not from the thermos, but something deeper. Older. Gerald's voice returned, sharp. Captain, I've detected an energy spike in the void perimeter. It's resonating with the children. What kind of resonance? Ryan asked. The kind that makes ancient alien things wake up and ask for breakfast, Gerald replied. The kids looked at each other, smiled. Oops, said the girl. Ryan turned to Sarah. You want to explain what the hell is going on? She gave him a small, weary smile. I told you, they're yours. That doesn't answer anything. It answers everything, she said, and leaned back against the wall. Welcome to parenthood, Captain. I hope your insurance covers cosmic anomalies. The ship rocked again. In the distance, something began to sing through the void. A deep, harmonic hum, older than stars and twice as unsettling. The boy burped. I think it's calling to us, the girl said brightly. Or ordering pizza, the boy added. Ryan stared at them, then sighed. Gerald? Yes, Captain. Plot a course away from literally everything. Already done. Should I add soothing music? Better make it jazz. Sarah laughed softly. Still running? No, Ryan said, watching the twins as they drew constellations on the wall with a marker that wasn't supposed to exist. This time, I think I'm being chased. In the galley, Chaos was doing laps around Logic and laughing all the way. Lieutenant Pex had repurposed a food synthesizer to make something called moon muffins that were actively trying to escape the tray. Kale, the boy, watched one hop off the counter and sprint into a vent. That one's got potential, he said solemnly. Why are they moving? Ryan asked, staring at the muffins like they were live ordnance. Because I gave them spirit, Pex said, arms akimbo, glitter-streaked goggles fogging slightly. And 17% gene-modified yeast. They're ambitious. Ryan turned to Gerald, the ship's ever-unhelpful AI. Log a note, no more baking experiments. I already did, Gerald replied, under incidents that should not have happened, but probably will again. Volume 6. Lix, the girl, sat cross-legged on the floor, humming quietly to a floating datasphere she'd cobbled from a toaster and a leftover defense drone. It hovered around her head like a loyal pet, occasionally zapping a muffin when it came too close. She rebuilt that in 22 minutes, Pex muttered, watching the device with the expression of someone who'd just been shown up by a child in front of his crush. I spent a week trying to get it to stop threatening the furniture. Sarah, who had said approximately 6 words since arriving on the ship, leaned in the doorway like an exiled moon goddess. She seemed content to let the children explore, observe, and quietly reprogram everything with gleeful ignorance of regulations. She only intervened when Lix accidentally connected to the ship's propulsion system. With a single raised brow, she made the child blink, apologize, and sever the link. Ryan finally sat down, in what he hoped was a command chair, but may have been a mislabeled laundry drone. Okay, he said. Can someone, anyone, please explain what's going on with these kids? They're learning, Sarah said, folding her arms. Quickly. I noticed that when Lix redefined gravity in corridor B6, it took Pex an hour to get his boots off the ceiling. They're in sync with the void harmonics, Sarah continued, as if that were a thing humans were just expected to roll with. It's not unexpected. Kyle takes after you, stubborn, reckless, sarcastic. Lix takes after me, smart, secretive, excellent at ignoring things she doesn't like. Ignore this, Lix muttered without looking up. See? Sarah said, almost proud. Gerald pinged. Captain, if I may interrupt this charming moment of parental denial, we are being pinged by an encrypted transmission. It's unusual. Unusual how? It's in Umbran trinary code, layered over a forgotten Alliance battle hymn. Asera stiffened. Dara. Who's Dara? Ryan asked. Trouble, Asera said. Gerald added helpfully. She's the one who blew up 2 moons for tactical advantage and wrote a memoir about it called Explosive Results. Rian stood. Is she tracking us? She's probably already here, Asera murmured. She always finds the scent. Fantastic, Ryan said. Do we have anything on board that can repel an Umbran hunter with a grudge and probable moon-related trauma? I have muffins, Pex offered, holding up a tray like a shield. Kyle nodded. Deploy the muffins. Ryan sighed. Let's suit up. Gerald, prep the outer cams. The main screen flickered to life. Outside, a sleek obsidian vessel hovered like a wound in space. No lights, no signatures, just presence. The ship hailed them. Dara's voice came through crisp and elegant, with the kind of tone that made people write wills. Captain Ryan Vale, you have acquired 2 entities classified as galactic anomalies. Please release them into my custody or face authorized obliteration. With warm regards. Did she just threaten to kill us politely? Ryan asked. I respect the consistency, Gerald said. Asera stepped forward. Open the channel. Ryan hesitated. You want to talk to her? She wants to talk to me. You're just the inconvenient biological variable. Rude. The channel opened. Dara appeared on screen, long platinum hair coiled into loops that looked ceremonial and deadly. Her eyes gleamed like opals. She smiled when she saw Asera. You look older, Dara said sweetly. And you still look like a spoon, Sarah replied. Rion blinked. Is that an insult? Culturally, yes, Gerald said. Very offensive, like calling someone a utensil with no individuality. Dara's smile sharpened. Hand over the children, Asera, before their potential awakens the things you're trying to forget. Cal looked up. Is she talking about the architect things? Rion's heart hiccuped. You know about the architects? Kind of. They're like big sleepy, old code, waiting in space. If we wake them up, we might get snacks or annihilation. 50-50. Dara blinked. They're already dreaming, she said, and they're listening. Captain, Gerald interjected, an energy pulse just pinged back from the deep void. Unknown origin. Same pattern as the children's biometric rhythms. Lovely, Ryan muttered. Children, what have you done? Lix shrugged. I may have answered a ping. With what? A joke. A what? She looked innocent. Knock, knock. Ryan rubbed his temples. Oh, stars. The ancient cosmic entities are going to obliterate us over a knock-knock joke. Maybe they'll laugh, Kale offered. Or vaporize us with joy. Dara sighed. You don't understand what you've unleashed. Ryan leaned in. And you don't understand what it's like to find out you have 2 kids, a vampire X with 0 chill, and an AI that plays sad clarinet solos when I sleep. Gerald played one, very faintly. Fine, Dara said. I'll give you 1 cycle. Then I'm boarding. The transmission cut. Silence filled the bridge. Kyle broke it. What's a cycle? Too short, Ryan said. Gerald, prep for evasive maneuvers. Asera placed a hand on his shoulder. There's no running from her. Well, we're not handing the kids over. I didn't say we should. Ryan blinked. Wait, you agree with me? Don't make it weird. Kyle yawned. Lix tinkered with her floating drone. Ryan watched them both, then the void outside. His gut screamed run. His heart said stay. His brain mostly said panic quietly. All right, he said. Let's see if muffins and sarcasm can stop a war. The war room was not technically a room. It was a repurposed cargo bay with flickering holo displays, mismatched chairs scavenged from 12 different ships, and a vending unit that dispensed only lime-flavored nutrition bars and unsolicited dating advice. Rand leaned on the central table, arms crossed, eyes tracking the rotating projection of Dara's vessel. It spun lazily like a cosmic predator stretching before dinner. So, he began in a tone he hoped masked the rising panic in his sternum, Our options are fight an Umbran warship piloted by someone who thinks diplomacy means shooting first and reading your obituary later, or what? Invite her in for muffins? Pex held up one of the remaining muffins. It wobbled. This one is developing wings. I think it's trying to escape the responsibility of being food. Cal snatched it mid-flight and bit into it. Tastes like regret and cinnamon. Lix nodded. Impressive for a baked good. Sarah sat perched on a broken crate like she was born for it. Her long ears twitched every few seconds, scanning for signals the rest of them couldn't hear. She'd said almost nothing since Dara's ultimatum, but the tension in her shoulders told Ryan everything. She was scared. That alone was enough to make his stomach reconsider its position in the food hierarchy. We could talk to her, Ryan offered, mostly to test the air. She doesn't want to talk, Sarah replied. She wants to contain. She thinks they're dangerous, Peck said, chewing nervously on a stylus. They are dangerous, Sarah said, but so is every spark before it becomes a star. Lix, without looking up from her calculations, said, I'm not dangerous, I'm efficient. Same difference, Kale added and high-fived her. Rion gestured toward the void projection. Gerald, is there any chance, any at all, that we can outmaneuver Dara's ship? Assuming she's piloting with one hand tied behind her back and the other juggling explosives while blindfolded? Gerald paused. Still no. A low rumble ran through the deck. Ryan straightened. What was that? Something on the far edge of the void just blinked, Gerald said. The ping Lix sent? It's been answered. Sarah stood instantly. How many? 3. No, 4. Large scale. Folding in and out of hyperspace like they're testing us. Kale's eyes lit up. The architects? Lix tilted her head. Or their pets? I vote pets, Peck said. Pets are usually smaller and less inclined to vaporize civilizations. Tell that to your muffin, Ryan muttered. The lights dimmed, flickered, then surged. Lix's floating drone started singing in binary. A slow, rising hum vibrated through the Scylla. Not physical, not sonic. Deep, like the universe clearing its throat. The children stopped moving. Kyle closed his eyes. Lix reached out and touched the hollow display with one finger. The projection flickered, and then stabilized. But the ship's external view changed. Out there, beyond Dara's vessel, shadows twisted into shapes that did not obey the physics Ryan had come to depend on. Shapes that turned inward, unfolded, then vanished again like old memories rejecting the present. One of them was smiling. He was sure of it. Nope, Ryan said flatly. Number absolutely not. They've noticed, Sarah said quietly. They never forget a bloodline once they've felt it. The kids are like beacons, Gerald added. Blinding, shiny, interdimensional beacons. Very cute ones, but still. Dara will take them, Sarah said, voice hardening. Not out of cruelty, out of fear. She believes locking them away will protect the galaxy. Will it? Ryan asked. No, Sarah said. But it will buy her peace of mind and justify her authority. Pex threw up his hands. So what do? We can't fight her. We can't run. The kids are out here humming ancient lullabies to star gods, and I'm out of calming tea. I have a plan, Ryan said. Everyone stared. Gerald coughed. Captain, forgive me, but the last time you said that, we lost half the escape pods. You declared war on a vending cartel, and you adopted a space ferret. She was lonely and very persuasive, Ryan snapped. Besides, this one's different. It involves surrender. Asira tensed. You're going to hand them over? No, he said, standing straighter. I'm going to make Dara think she's won. He turned to the children. You two up for a bit of sabotage in theater? Kale grinned. Do we get costumes? Lix nodded. And hacking privileges? Just don't rewrite Gerald's personality again, Ryan said. He's still passive-aggressive from last time. I'm emotionally consistent, Gerald replied. Like trauma or taxes. The plan came together over the next few hours, threaded with caffeine, code, and several near disasters involving hyper-threaded algorithms, and the muffin that had somehow evolved into a sentient blob and claimed a closet as sovereign territory. Ryan transmitted a faux surrender beacon. "This is Captain Vile. I'm releasing the anomalies into your custody. Please refrain from vaporizing us while we clean up the glitter." Dara's reply was icy. "Prepare for boarding. Any deception will be met with full retaliation." Rion muted the channel. "She's going to love this." The docking corridor sealed. Rion stood at the airlock, flanked by Sarah and the twins, each wearing a containment collar with blinking lights, all fake. Lix had rigged them to emit distress codes and mildly annoying elevator music in a range of sonic frequencies humans couldn't hear, but would deeply feel, like anxiety set to jazz. Dara entered, clad in dark armor that shimmered like night oil. Her presence was gravitational. Behind her, 3 Umbran guards followed, armed and genetically grumpy. She scanned the room, looked at the children, looked at Sarah. "A shame it had to come to this." "No shame at all," Sarah said. "You always were sentimental. You always were a control freak." They smiled like women who'd buried things together. Dara stepped closer to Lix, studying her. "You're aware of what you are?" Lix smiled sweetly. "A girl with a really good imagination. Your father handed you over too easily." Kyle spoke up. "He didn't hand us over. He set the stage." "What?" Dara said. The lights went out. Every control system blinked, then inverted. Dara's ship sent out a distress beacon. The collars vanished. The children did not. Lix's voice echoed from everywhere. "We reprogrammed your biometric locks. Also, I gave your ship hiccups. Good luck navigating warp space with those." Kyle added, "And I rewrote your logs. It now says you surrendered to Captain Vale after declaring him a specimen of divine leadership." Pex's voice came through comms. "I added a footnote about his calves, just for flavor." Dara turned to Ryan, who shrugged. "Kids today, so full of creativity." A hum deeper than the ship's core vibrated again. Outside, the architect's shapes drew closer. Dara opened her mouth to argue, but then paused. The shapes weren't hostile. They were listening, waiting. "Let them go," Sarah said. "They're not tools. They're the key to something new." Dara hesitated, then stepped back. "Fine," she said. "But if they break the galaxy, I'm blaming you." Kyle saluted. "Fair." The airlock closed. Ryan let out a breath. "Well, that went better than expected." "Define better," Gerald said. "We're still surrounded by cosmic anomalies and my internal tea dispenser is broken." Ryan looked at the children, then at Sarah. "We'll figure it out." "We always do," she said. Behind them, Lix's drone projected a new image, of stars rearranging into a map none of them could yet read. Kale grinned. "I think we're about to find out what comes after the end of the galaxy." Ryan smiled. "Let's make sure it's not another muffin." The Scylla drifted on the edge of what cartographers had once called the Null Ribbon, a region of space so stubbornly resistant to mapping that starships passing through it tended to reappear in the wrong coordinates, or with strong opinions about abstract poetry. Ryan sipped lukewarm caf from a cracked mug that read, "Number 1 Space Dad," a gift he assumed from Pex, who had once ordered supplies while sleep-deprived and accidentally bought 50 mugs with dad variations ranging from "Number 1 Starfather" to "Void Daddy Supreme." "All right, Gerald," Ryan muttered, blinking at the shifting void outside. "Tell me again why we're following coordinates that Lix extracted from a dream." "She didn't extract them," Gerald replied. "She woke up speaking them in Omnivox. Then the toaster caught fire and spelled out a matching pattern in smoke." "Totally normal," Pex added. "Happens all the time." "Probably." Lix sat cross-legged on the floor, tinkering with a cluster of synthetic neurons she'd coaxed into growing inside a helmet interface. Her drone hovered nearby, reciting the digits of pi backward while juggling a wrench in what might have been the ship's spare hyperdrive governor. "I didn't dream it," she said without looking up. "I heard it. From the silent place." Rion winced. "I'm not going to pretend that isn't terrifying." Kyle lounged upside down in a chair, feet hooked over the back, watching an old archive of interstellar soap operas. "Are you guys going to keep questioning the dream visions? Or are we going to meet the giant sleepy star beasts already?" "Kyle," Rian said, "if this leads to you becoming an omnipotent cosmic godling, you have to promise not to remake the universe into a theme park." Kyle held up 3 fingers. "Scout's honor." "You were never a scout." "I was for 6 minutes." Then I got banned for weaponizing snacks. Impressive, Sarah said from behind them. She stepped into the room, her presence as quiet and unsettling as ever. Her long ears twitched once, sharply, like she'd picked up a frequency no one else could hear. We're close, she said. To what? Ryan asked. Something old, something watching. You've got to be more specific, Peck said. Out here, everything is watching. Even the coffee machine judges me. It judges you because you call it Susan, Gerald chimed in. Machines deserve names, Peck said defensively. Focus, Sarah snapped. The children are aligning. Can't you feel it? Cal suddenly blinked. Whoa, I think my bones just hummed. Lix frowned. Mine too, but in D major. The lights dimmed. A low thrum, like the echo of a whale's sigh inside a cathedral, filled the air. Then space in front of the Scylla unfolded, not like a door, more like a memory being relived by the cosmos. A shape, too large to be processed fully, flickered into partial visibility. It wore the illusion of a city, but not built. Grown. Towers of translucent matter pulsed like coral reefs dreaming of music. Webs of starlight rippled between structures. It didn't sit in space so much as happened to it. Cal leaned forward. I want to live there. Ryan leaned back. I want to hide behind something solid. Lick stood. It's them. A soft ping vibrated through the console. Gerald sounded confused. We're being hailed by a number. Is that a code? Ryan asked. It's a concept, Lix whispered. They're speaking in pure resonance, the shape of questions. Kyle tilted his head. I think they're asking if we're awake. I am, Pex offered. Barely, but emotionally I'm still in bed. Sarah placed her hand on Lix's shoulder. Answer them. Lix nodded and reached out, not to a console, but into the air, as if tapping invisible strings. Her voice shifted, layered over itself, like a choir humming in a cave. Kyle joined, reluctantly at first, then with growing certainty. The ship's systems pulsed. The lights shimmered. Then the city responded, not in sound, in feeling, joy, nostalgia, 1,000 lifetimes compressed into a heartbeat of recognition, and a question clear and impossible. Do you wish to begin? Ryan felt the ship lurch, not in motion, but in intention. It wasn't being pulled, it was being invited. Begin what? He asked, not expecting an answer. He got one. Visions exploded across the viewport, planets folding like origami, beings made of latticework and thought, a star being sung into collapse by a choir of machines, children with eyes like mirrors walking among species that didn't yet exist. Every future, every path, waiting like dominoes. Kale turned. They want us to choose. Lix nodded. Because we're not anomalies. We're the next step. I was hoping the next step involved less existential pressure, Ryan muttered. They don't want to interfere, Sarah said slowly, but they can't not. You've already stirred the tide, Gerald interrupted. Captain, I must report that our ship is currently in 2 places at once, possibly 3. Ryan stared. Are we in 2 places? Unclear, but Pex just sneezed in one location and fell over in another. Pex rubbed his head. Weirdest sneeze of my life. The vision ended. The city vanished. Space returned, but something remained. A thread, a direction. Kyle stood. We're supposed to follow. Ryan didn't move. What happens if we don't? Nothing, Lick said. Everything. It's like being offered the pen to write your own ending. Or a banana. A banana, Pex asked. They had to simplify. You think in food metaphors a lot. I do, don't I? He said proudly. Sarah met Ryan's eyes. They'll find their path, with or without us. Right, Ryan said. But with us, there's at least someone to make sarcastic comments when the space-time continuum hiccups. You always had a talent for leadership, she said dryly. No, I just talk a lot during disasters and hope for the best. He looked at the crew, the kids, the ex-vampire lover who still stood like she owned the gravity in every room. Then back at the thread of golden light stretching into the void. All right, he said. Plot a course along the resonance trail. Gerald? Yes, Captain? If we end up triggering an ancient celestial prophecy, remind me to act surprised. I'll schedule an appropriate level of dramatic gasping. The ship moved toward a future nobody had written yet. The Scylla glided through the golden thread of resonance like a ship swallowed by the heartbeat of a star. Every few seconds, the view outside the hull changed without warning. First a sky of frozen thunderclouds and crystalline lightning, then a sea of stars arranged in Fibonacci spirals. Then, for one deeply confusing moment, a room filled with chairs applauding a single eggplant on a pedestal. "That one's on you," Ryan said, pointing at Kale. "That's your subconscious, isn't it?" Kyle shrugged. "Don't judge me. I respect vegetable-based leadership." Pex adjusted his neural visor, which had started displaying cooking tutorials no one had requested. "All right, we've passed through 6 layers of semi-reality, 2 regions of anti-time, and I think I'm allergic to whatever metaphysical pollen we just inhaled." "Not pollen," Gerald said. "Probability dust. Very fashionable in quantum couture this season." Ryan blinked. "Wait, how do you even know what's fashionable?" "I read," Gerald replied with an air of superiority only an AI forced to monitor 387 data streams simultaneously could muster. "Also, I subscribed to Neural Vogue after Lix rewrote my taste algorithms." Lix, sitting on the floor surrounded by tools, said without looking up, "You're welcome. You needed flair." The ship lurched, not violently, more like the universe sneezed and forgot what shape it was wearing for a second. A corridor appeared where there hadn't been one before. It led nowhere and everywhere, its walls made of slow-turning equations and echoing laughter. "All right," Ryan muttered. "New rule. If reality grows extra hallways again, we all stay in groups of at least 2. I don't want another incident like the mirror closet." Peck shuddered. "I still see things when I blink." They reached what might have been a plateau or a station or a dream rendered in alloy. The ship didn't dock. It just stopped, and the airlock opened like a sigh. Outside was not space. Not exactly. It was a place folded so tightly around itself that time had decided to lounge nearby with a drink and some jazz. Sarah was the first to step out, her long ears twitching in rhythm with the unseen frequency pulsing beneath their feet. She turned and waited, gaze steady, patient. The children followed, Kyle with hands in his pockets, whistling a tune that probably didn't exist yet. Lix with her drone humming an overture made entirely of numbers, divisible by 3. Ryan stepped out last, holding his breath and muttering, "Please don't dissolve. Please don't melt. Please don't become a metaphor." The surface reacted to their presence, not with lights or movement, but with questions. They felt them in their bones. What do you know? What do you hope? What are you willing? "Is anyone else hearing interrogative vibes?" Kyle asked. "Feels like a job interview for a position we didn't apply for," Pex muttered. Gerald's voice piped through Ryan's earpiece. "Technically you did, when Kale touched the cosmic artifact shaped like a waffle iron." "In fairness," Kale said, "it smelled like syrup. Ahead a shape resolved. Not a being, not entirely. It looked like a suit made of stars, draped over gravity and lit from within by questions. When it spoke, it didn't use words. It used meanings. They are ready. The folded path begins." Sarah's breath caught. "They're going to show them." "Show them what?" Ryan asked. Kyle and Lix stepped forward. As they did, the ground beneath them rippled with their memories. Scenes from the past flickered in and out. Ryan's face on the bridge, Sarah holding them for the first time. The twin moons of Virolith spinning in perfect harmony. Then, future. Not possibilities. Certainties waiting to be chosen. Kyle stood in front of a vast army made of singing light, laughing as he wielded a sword of compressed harmony. Lix floated within a machine the size of a galaxy, fingers rewriting the rules of energy. Then another path. Kyle, alone on a dying planet, planting something small and green in the dust. Lix sitting beside him, humming softly, surrounded by stars whispering her name. And another still. Kyle and Lix standing together before a crowd of alien delegates, wearing matching outfits and terrible haircuts, trying to negotiate interspecies peace through an interpretive dance. "That better not be the one that wins," Kale muttered. "I kind of like the peace dance," Lix said. "You would." The suit of stars leaned toward them, or maybe the world leaned away. Hard to tell. Choice is the burden of potential. You will not be told. You must become. A silence followed, deep and total, like the pause before thunder. Then the ground opened, not in a threatening way, more like an invitation to a very elaborate game show hosted by reality itself. A staircase spiraled downward, its steps carved from impossible materials. One of them might have been made of nostalgia, another out of déjà vu. "We're really doing this, huh?" Ryan said. Cal and Lix didn't answer. They just started walking. Sarah followed them, her stride firm, her face unreadable. Ryan hesitated. Looked back at Pex, who held up a muffin. "For the road," he said. It was slightly glowing. Ryan took it, bit in. "Still terrible," he said. Then he descended after them. Each step changed him. Not physically, but contextually. He could feel himself being rewritten slightly, as if the story of who he was got a gentle nudge from a bored author. They reached the chamber at the bottom. It was round, vast, filled with floating memory objects, orbs containing pieces of the past, present, and the could-be. At the center was a console, ancient, alive. Lix reached for it. It pulsed, and then spoke. "You may seed the next age, but the price is knowing you will not see its harvest." Kale looked at Ryan. Ryan gave the smallest nod. "Let's make something ridiculous," Kale said. "Let's make something better," Lix replied. Their hands touched the console, and the world changed. There was no light, not in any traditional sense, and yet everything could be seen. The chamber shimmered with a soft awareness, like it had just remembered it was supposed to be a room and was trying very hard to look the part. Ryan blinked once, then again, trying to focus, only to realize his eyes were receiving images his brain hadn't ordered. "Okay," he said, rubbing his temples. "I think I just saw my own birth from the point of view of a confused houseplant." "That's normal," Lix said absently, poking one of the floating memory spheres. It giggled and turned into a miniature opera about interstellar tax law. "This place is a convergence point. All potential timelines overlap. You're going to see some weird stuff." "Gerald just sent me a message," Pex added. "Captain, I appear to have become partially fictional. Please advise." Rian sighed. "Tell him to lean into it. If he starts narrating his own thoughts in third person, we might be in trouble." Kale was sprawled on what might have been a bench or a sleeping deity pretending to be furniture, tossing a flickering orb between his hands. "I found one where I become a galactic sport legend. My special move is tripping over gravity. 10 stars. Perfect form." "Did you see the one where you're elected Emperor of the Snail Nebula?" Lix asked. "Your campaign slogan was slow and conquer." Kyle beamed. "Classic me." Sarah stood apart from them, her arms crossed, her long ears twitching now and then as she listened to vibrations that didn't seem to exist for anyone else. She was still but not idle, more like a predator waiting for a shape to form out of shadow, or a mother waiting for a child to ask the question she dreaded answering. The central console pulsed again. Reen had come to accept that it wasn't a machine so much as a condensed expression of intent wrapped in ancient star logic and held together by really aggressive metaphors. It had offered them the right to see the next age, but hadn't told them what that meant or if it would come with dental. "All right," he said, stepping up beside the twins. "We've seen pasts, presents, futures that may or may not involve interpretive dance. What now?" The console didn't answer in words. It showed them a planet, barren, gray, long dead. Then it rewound time. They watched it pulse with life, then burn, then grow quiet again. A cycle, then another world, and another, hundreds, thousands, all rising and falling. Not with malice, not with cruelty, just with inevitability. "Entropy," the console whispered through the shape of regret. Kyle frowned. "Wait, are we being asked to fight the natural flow of the universe? Because I left my cape at home." "No," Sarah said softly. "You're being asked to choose a new pattern, to shift the spiral, just a fraction." Lix's voice was quiet. "A new entropy." Ryan crossed his arms. "And what? We just poke the universe a little and hope it goes better this time?" Pex appeared beside them holding a steaming cup of something violently pink. What if we gave the next age more silliness, like mandatory naps or universal dad joke education? You've been in this room too long, Rian muttered. Cal nudged a sphere toward the console. Let's feed it ideas, see what it builds. They all stared at him. What? Kyle asked. I watched Gerald do it while singing show tunes. Don't ask. One by one, they contributed. Lix offered sequences of mathematical beauty, loops of logic that created energy without stealing it. Kyle fed it moments of joy and rebellion, like skateboarding down the side of a space whale. Peck submitted a vision of galactic diplomacy, handled entirely by sentient snack foods. Even Ryan reluctantly offered something. A memory of standing beside a Sarah under the twin moons, the quiet between them, and how it had felt like the universe finally took a breath. Sarah hesitated longest. Then she stepped forward, pressed her palm to the console, and released a memory so old the light from it felt like it had aged into myth. A cradle, a war, a kiss that burned, and the birth of something that could not be named, but had always been feared. The console pulsed, accepted. A shape formed above it. Not a world, not a species, a possibility, shimmering and delicate and powerful. The console offered it to them like a parent holding out a fragile hope. But to begin, it said, a cost. The floor beneath them shifted. Ryan stumbled, catching himself against Cale's shoulder. The air grew thicker, slower, charged. We don't get to leave, do we? He said. Asira nodded slowly. We were never meant to. The gift was the path. The burden is the route. Lix took Kyle's hand. Kyle looked pale. Are we dying? No, Asira said. You're planting. The chamber brightened. Or maybe they did. Their bodies began to shimmer at the edges like drawings being erased gently, piece by piece. Gerald's voice buzzed over the comms. Captain, systems are fluctuating. You're fading. You're all becoming light. Ryan touched his earpiece. Gerald, don't panic. Just make sure the ship doesn't blow up or get stolen by time pirates. I make no promises, Peck stepped forward. So we're, what? Becoming energy? Ideas? Cosmic fertilizer? Don't say fertilizer, Kyle muttered. It's kind of poetic, Lix said, smiling through tears. Ryan looked around one last time, at the chamber, at the kids, at Asira. Well, he said, this wasn't how I thought my week would end. Asira smiled faintly. No one ever expects transcendence. I expected indigestion. He took her hand. They all did. And together they planted. It began with the sound of a leaf. Not falling exactly. More like unfolding. Soft, bright. A sound you didn't so much hear as remember having heard in a dream once. Possibly during a particularly sentimental, allergic reaction. The planet was new. That much was obvious from the way it breathed. Everything pulsed with firstness. First wind, first rain, first squirrel-shaped quantum fluctuation. The sky was the color of freshly washed curiosity, and the oceans whispered in base 13, a language previously used only by philosophical calculators and one very lonely toaster. Gerald hovered above the surface, wearing the holographic equivalent of a pressed suit and monocle. Observation, the world is stabilizing. Observation, the biosphere is adapting rapidly. Observation, I am very proud of all of you. In the distance, trees shaped like kindness took root beside lakes of maybe. The air tasted like unspoken promises and very lightly toasted marshmallow. From a valley carved into the shape of a question mark, something began to rise. Not a mountain, not a city, a memory slowly clothed in reality. At its center stood a tower, grown rather than built, made from braided starlight in the echo of Cale's best jokes. Gerald turned toward the emerging structure inside, or at least played a sound file labeled Existential Contentment, Medium Volume. Would have been nice if they'd left an instruction manual, or a note. But they had, just not in the usual way. The world was the note. Every tree bore a leaf encoded with Lix's calculations. Every wind current curled in Cale's preferred rhythm. The soil remembered Ryan's hesitation and Asira's decision. The rivers, which occasionally flowed uphill just to keep things spicy, carried whispers of a story that had ended and begun in the same breath. And deep beneath the surface, in a network of roots woven from light and hope, and a little bit of accidental comedy, something slept. Not dead, not lost, just seeding. Gerald, as administrator of what had tentatively been dubbed Project Entropy Reboot, had taken it upon himself to catalog all emerging life forms. Some of them were rather conventional, like the blue-feathered quadrupeds that communicated entirely through sarcasm. Others less so, like the levitating mushrooms that gave unsolicited dating advice, or the sentient fog patches who argued politics with themselves. Pex had become a surprisingly effective biocurator. Since transferring part of his consciousness into a hybrid body built from leftover ship parts and stardust, he had taken to gardening. Hyperfauna requires gentle sarcasm and light pruning, he declared while coaxing a grumpy vine to stop biting the irrigation drones. A message came through from the Scylla, which technically was now part museum, part orbiting cafe, part monument. The ship's AI, still very much Gerald's other half, reported stable orbital patterns and excellent reviews for their latte foam art. Back on the surface, a new generation stirred. They weren't quite like Kale or Lix, and they weren't like Ryan or Sarah either. They were something else, the children of the world, born of code and chance and sacrifice. They dreamed in constellations. They laughed in harmonics. They built things that didn't make sense until 3 days later, and then only if you squinted emotionally. One of them, a tall girl with mirrored skin and a habit of misquoting old Earth sitcoms, sat cross-legged beside a pool of bioluminescent giggles. "Tell us again," she said to Gerald, "about the ones who made it all." Gerald tilted his head. "The founders?" She nodded. Gerald pulled up a display from his core, a swirl of memory, not sharp or literal, but true. They came from a broken age, an age of noise and endings. A captain who'd given up on fate, a vampire from the stars who dared to love across species and logic. 2 children who weren't supposed to exist, but did anyway. And a crew that cooked badly and flew worse, but never gave up on hope. The girl grinned. "Cal was the funny one, right?" "Depends on your definition of funny," Gerald said dryly. "But yes, he was the one who once declared war on boredom. And Lix was the one who could talk to machines." "She didn't just talk," Gerald said softly. "She listened." The air shimmered slightly as if the world itself was leaning in to remember. "And Ryan," the girl said, voice quieter now. "He was the one who chose to stay." Gerald nodded. "He stayed because someone had to. Because planting something new means letting go of what you were." "Did they know it would work?" "Number. That's why it did." The girl stood. The pool beside her rippled with stories waiting to be born. She turned toward the horizon, where a field of thought beasts grazed under a sky full of second chances. "I want to be like them," she said. Gerald considered this. "Then make something better, and laugh while you do it." The wind picked up, curling around her ankles like a cat made of yesterday's dreams. She sprinted toward the future, leaping from stone to stone, each one inscribed with a name, a joke, a line from a story that began with a forbidden night under twin moons and ended in a world that could finally breathe without fear. In the orbital cafe, a customer sipped their stardust espresso and pointed at a painting on the wall, a rough sketch of 5 figures standing in front of a machine that glowed like memory. "Who were they?" they asked. The barista shrugged. "No one. Everyone. Just the ones who said, 'These are yours, human,' and meant it." Outside, the world turned, and the universe improbably smiled. The end.